Let me
Yo, do you guys want
uninstall this
moderation?
really quick. Give me a second.
Yes. Get
Uh,
moderation.
I can mod
do
if
you want
y'all
to agree
want,
as
or
a
y'all
moderation? You guys
can
can
have like
get
a retard like C or something if y'all want. I don't know.
I mean, I'm fine
Yeah,
with
if you want
Infinity. I'm fine
retards,
with
we can get
Shikio.
Infinity.
I'm fine with Arjun. I'm fine with
Yo,
Toomey's
me,
dad.
me,
I'm fine with
me, me,
Goldie. I'm fine with
me,
anti
Everybody
new
ignore what you say.
retard.
me, 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 me.
Who's me? Who? I'm fine with Darn. I'm fine with
Me,
Bosky. I'm
me.
fine with. Who's saying me?
Who say
Shikio,
that?
bro. Like, yo,
Yo,
someone mute
Okay.
Shikio, bro, we
Shikio,
get
bro.
it, bro. Fuck no, bro.
Oh
You
God,
know what I'm
bro.
saying?
Like,
I'm fine with Yabi. I'm
This
fine with
nigga you'll
B.
never
I'm
shut
fine with
up.
yo,
I'm
it's
fine with
Balder, bro.
Benra.
Okay, I'm done fake
Um,
laughing. Yo, who is that? Like, you're not
let's
funny. Shut
see.
up.
That nigga Shiki a
Hey
bitch.
yo, get Darn, bro. Hey
I'm
yo, get
fine with
Darn, bro. He tough.
Kuro.
Hey, get Darn.
Also,
He
Me,
guys,
I'm
tough.
fine
sorry.
with
me.
Just to be, I just
Shruapala.
wanted to be
That
clear.
nigga
I'm
Shiki
fine
I
with
a
have
him.
ass.
to. I just want to be clear. I have to get ready for work in like an hour, so try to keep the discussion under an hour.
That nigga
Sure.
Shiki a booty.
Oh
Okay,
God.
so we're just gonna mute that person over there, and then
Me.
All right, so that's fine. I'm recording whatever we started. So I'm just gonna be clearly Lucario. It seems as though he's taken the
did you
position
agree
that God
to a mod?
exists. He says that he has a good
That nigga
argument for it.
Lucario ass.
So what's the argument?
Do you accept classical logic?
Do I accept classical logic? What does that
Yeah.
even mean?
Do you know what classical logic is?
Do you take classical logic to be like a proposition?
Yes.
What? Okay, that's
It's just a,
interesting.
there's three propositions.
Okay. What? Oh no. Okay. Yeah. I guess that's fine. So let's see.
Is it
What are the
bad?
propositions that classical logic like refers to?
A equals A. If something's contradictory, then it's false.
Oh man.
And yeah, if something's contradictory and it's false, then all propositions are either true or false. Do you
Where did
accept
you get
those?
this argument from?
That's not an argument, idiot.
Yeah, I didn't say that was an argument, you fucking retard. I'm talking about the argument you're going to give, which is obviously going to have preliminary conditions of the questions you're asking. I thought that was already naturally inferred since the fact that you had like
Yeah, I asked
apparently
you.
very crucial cues. But it's okay. We'll work under your like retardation though. So listen. The laws of logic, they aren't propositions, you fucking peon. So obviously the law of identity equals A, law of non-contradiction, a statement can be false, yada yada yada. All these things, okay? They're merely just principles, okay? Right? They're inherent to rational thought, right? They're preliminary conditions that we have to in order for, or at least to get intelligible convo to some extent, okay? They're not propositions that we choose into thinking. They're built into the very structure of our rational thinking. So I don't really know what you mean when you say it's a proposition. But let's just assume for the second that it's not a proposition. Wait, hang on for a second. Let's just assume for a second that it is a proposition. My bad. So are you just saying do you accept classical logic that I take to hold to these propositions, quote unquote propositions in my background assumptions?
You said that principles.
Because if so, then sure.
Stop. You said that there are principles, not propositions. But direct yourself to side chat. You'll see an image of what a principle is. It's a fundamental truth.
Okay, that's okay. So
that's
no,
okay.
it's okay. Go on.
Okay. So do you accept the propositions that I told you they were?
Equivocating. Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
So direct yourself to main chat. So what do you think this is right here?
That's the definition of principle.
No, that's not a definition of principle. That's a definition of equivocation.
Really?
So listen. Yeah, it is. It is. So listen, obviously, if we look up the basic usages of certain terms, sure, it can for the most part be the case that principle is used in this way. I'm completely fine with that. But generally, since I'm the appraiser... Oh, oops, sorry, I'm lagging. But generally, since I'm the appraiser, I don't really know why you make even such a weak argument. It can be the very case that sometimes principle is defined in a way to where proposition is integrated into the language, right? But since I'm the appraiser, generally it'd be normal if you to acknowledge and appreciate my language usage of it. To which in this instance, obviously, principle would not be something that's integrating a proposition. And for a second, even if I were to agree to the fact and follow your silly little logic, that for whatever reason, since it's defined in this way, we all have to use it this way. Oh, whatever. Oh, man. Oh, fuck. Oh, there we go. My internet's back. So yeah, by the way, even if we were to accept the fact that we are using it in this way, and we were to like follow a logic that because it's defined this particular way within some dictionary, I always have to use it this way, which is by the way not the case that I grant. I'm not even sure if what they mean by proposition in such a sense is the way that you're taking it to be. To which I'm assuming by proposition you're taking it to be as just a statement that could be truth apt. But a proposition it can just be an idea that's proposed, right? In the instance of like normal day-to-day usage.
An idea.
So if I say that you
proposed,
should, for example, yes. So if I say, for example, that you actually should drink water today, some people in normal day-to-day conversation would consider that a proposition. But me saying that you should do this in a sense, that could be considered something that is truth apt. But if I'm using it in such a way that indicates that actually I don't believe whether this is true or not, right? The truth value of that statement of it in itself, asking is it true that I actually hold to whether this is true, that could be taken as a proposition, right? But I'm not even sure in day-to-day normal language, in layman usage, that people even take propositions to be the same way that most logicians take them to be. So even that would be quite a flaw in your instance. But we don't even have to go over that because I'm not even using principle in such a way, right?
Yeah. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. So, the reason why I got the definition of principles was to just say that it's pretty comical how you would use the term when most of the time it's just like standardly defined as a proposition.
I don't really care about why.
That's
No,
why
no,
now
stop,
you're-
stop.
can we go- I thought
I'll
this
just
was-
stop you right there. It doesn't matter about why you use the term principle in such a way.
Where is
I'm
the
the one who
moderation?
initially proposed that they
Where
were
is the
principles.
moderation?
If I'm the
Where is the
appraiser, then
moderation?
generally it would just mean
Holy
in such
shit,
an
I'm
instance
just
that you
gonna
would
chill. I'm
appreciate
just
my
gonna look
language.
I don't
near
know
you.
if you. I don't know if you both agree to me as mine.
Yeah,
I
sure.
agree to Infinity
You
as
can
mod.
maybe.
You said what? I didn't hear you.
I agree to Infinity as mod. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Good.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so
Explain
what
why
I
your
was
point's
saying is that I just think it was comical. Like the first definition was like the exact opposite. What you're saying to point to the idiosyncrasy that you're using when you invoke the term principles. My criticism is not that your propositions are false thus far. My criticism is that you're using idiosyncrasy in the way you convey these propositions, which is it just speaks to your level as a debater, in my opinion. You also say that it could just be an idea that's proposed. When I think the concept of proposing something, a lot of times that's just going to be indicative of a proposition. I think idea is indicative of a proposition. I'm not to say that that's not to say that it's necessary. I think it could be like a
What type of
motivist and a
moderation do you
motivist
want?
talking stick.
My bad for interrupting. Do you agree
No,
with
you're
Doge?
good.
What was that?
Do you
Do I
agree to
agree for
talking
the
stick?
talking stick? It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just respond to what you're saying. If your
I'm
response
not
was
done.
just
I'm
that
not done. I'm not
using
done.
it in
I
an
didn't finish.
idiosyncratic.
I didn't finish.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Since you took a very long pause, good.
It's okay. You didn't understand the reasons why there was a very long pause, but it's okay. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I think you could be a motivist, or they might not be propositions. But I theorize that any attempt at a semantic reduction that you use for principles is going to reduce down to a proposition. So I'm interested in you defining the definition, defining the term principles for me, and then I'll just like write that out. But also another thing that you said is that these principles are not really proposed; they're just like kind of presupposed in the way that we think. Well, I agree that you can presuppose them. I think oftentimes we do presuppose them, but you also say that they're not things that we choose. Well, I take that to be false. I think oftentimes it is the case, in the majority of the cases, we presuppose them, but there are cases where you'd actually choose them. Like you would reflect on non-classical laws where you might reject the third law of logic. You might reject that. Well, not all propositions are either mutually exclusive disjunction of truthness and falseness. So I think there is so your statement that we don't choose them, that's false. But your statement that we presuppose them and there's something that we use to and for other things as like kind of axioms, that's generally true. But yeah, I want you to define what principles are.
Are you done? I don't want to accidentally interrupt you.
Yeah, I'm done.
Gotcha. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here about why you're wrong. I'm not sure if I even want to take the bait on like the principle convo because it doesn't really matter. Obviously, a principle can involve propositions, but like it's not idiosyncratic for me to use it in a way that doesn't. I mean, principles itself is like usually a lot broader. Like usually it's just some like abstract guideline that governs a reason. Like for example, if I say the principle of the law of non-contradiction involves propositions, such as like A cannot be both A and not A, but the law itself, I could just call it like some structural guideline that governs how we choose to think about those propositions. And again, this is very rudimentary stuff. Like I don't think when we use the term modus ponens, it probably isn't going to be a proposition of it itself, right? right? It's just a logical rule. It may involve propositions such as like P and Q, and these atomic props. In its application, that's fine, but the rule itself is just telling us how these valid arguments work. And obviously, in some similar sense, I just take it to be kind of how we use the laws of logic. This is actually quite common usage within most ideas. In fact, I actually take it most logicians agree with my iteration, or not iteration, but my idea of the laws of logic. I don't even think it's like I'm willing to wager most logicians don't think the laws of logic are itself propositions. Like I'm not even familiar with such usage. When you say that we don't choose it, I mean, you're just very, very confused. I'm not saying in the sense to where we don't literally, or to where we literally don't have a choice but to use the laws of logic or not. I don't really know what you even mean by that. I don't even know what it means to necessarily use the laws of logic in such a weird sense. I don't even think you know what logic is, right? But obviously I'm not saying we don't necessarily choose in such a sense. I'm just referencing the idea that like, classical logic, obviously with its specific rules and assumptions, it's just not only possible. It's just not the only possible system of logic available. Like, obviously that's the case, right? Right? But obviously classical logic is just one system amongst many that we could use. When I'm just saying that we use classical logic in such a way to where we don't choose to, I'm merely saying that we imply it. It's integrated into a lot of our background assumptions of the world. Okay? Now this is also very, very basic stuff. These things are not propositions, nor are they convention tools. This is not idiosyncratic, right? They're just fundamental ideas and thought processes, they're fundamental to these ideas and thought processes that we use, which is true, right? I mean, obviously, when we talk about like the definitions of the laws of logic, I mean, the main idea of identity, non-contradiction, and the law of excluded middle, all these things apply to a lot of the ways we think and communicate. It's actually very terrible I have to explain this to you and waste my time explaining this to you, especially during a God debate, which we can get into, I guess, but whatever. But obviously, if I'm saying everything is identical to itself, if I'm saying that contradictory statements cannot be both true and false at the same time, and that there seems to be no middle ground between truth and falsity, these aren't props that we choose into thinking in the sense to where we're literally applying them to propositions like actively. They seem to just be built into like rational thought. Like without these laws, we seemingly wouldn't even be able to engage in what most of us conventionally take to be coherent reason. Like if the law of non-contradiction tells us that if a statement contradicts itself, obviously we know something has gone wrong in our thought process, right? But that's not usually something that most people have to like actively think about and say, oh, let's direct back to the law of non-contradiction. Yeah, it says that. No, most of the time this is just taken to our conventional usage. If you disagree with that, that's fine. I don't really care to argue with you about basic stuff. But yeah, that's simply all I'm saying. Now, the confusion that we're drawing here is because you asked me if I accept the laws of logic or I accept classical logic. I already told you I'm not familiar with that terminology. That doesn't actually make any sense. But if all you mean to say is that, or all you mean to ask is if I integrate the laws of logic, or if the laws of logic are integrated, like classical logic, into my background assumptions that I take to form coherent sentences, thoughts, and form some intelligibility or gain some intelligibility with, or whatever. I mean, sure, I'm fine with that. Like I've already signed that off to you. Right now, it just seems as if you're just like arguing on like retarded nonsense, and that you're just very confused on what logic is. But I'll let you take it away and yap some more.
Okay, so first off, you say that you didn't use an idiosyncratic, or not that you didn't use an idiosyncratic, but you could have used an idiosyncratic definition of principles. But even the main one, principles are a lot broader. Now, you didn't specify what it's broader than, so I'm just going to assume you're talking about my semantics and criteria for a proposition in which I never affirmed the negation, so you're essentially shadow boxing when you say, oh, they're a lot broader. Well, that's kind of just like a moot point, because I concur with you that principles are broader than propositions, and by broader here, I don't know what you mean by broader, but by broader here, I'm talking about more properties about them, more properties being true about them. So the properties that I would label as true about principles, but not just general propositions, which would actually make like general propositions like technically broader. But I understand what you mean. In the sense that I would concur that, okay, well, they're broader because like they're axiomatic, and so those propositions are going to have a lot of restricted truth conditions, whereas the truth conditions for axioms are a lot broader. And so that's the sense in which I would concur with you that principles are broader. But that doesn't falsify anything that I've said. All I've said is that principles are in the set of all propositions, meaning that it's met the sufficient criteria for propositions. Now that's just for the definition of principles that we went
I didn't
over.
hear anything you said.
Stop.
My Wi-Fi was cutting out.
Okay.
Why are you telling me stop? I was just
concur with
clarifying.
you. Apologies. So just to be clear, what I was saying earlier, really quick, is that when you say that principles
What?
are broader, you did not stop. You
Your
can.
mic
I
cut
concur
out,
with
guys.
you. Did my okay? Maybe I'll turn my microphone down. So I
No,
agree
not
with
down.
you.
Turn it up. Like it's like
No,
muffly and like bad.
No,
But I
when
don't think
have
it is right
all the-
now. That was just previously. You could continue.
Yeah, when I have it all the way up, it tends to like sometimes cut out. I think it's my
It's
phone,
fine.
but so apologies for that. But really quickly, what I was saying is that I agree with you that principles are broader. You didn't clarify what you said. They were broader than. So I'm just going to assume that you're talking about my semantics for and my criterion for propositions, in which I would concur with you on, but only in the sense that principles they don't have as many truth conditions because I take them to be more rudimentary and more axiomatic. So that's a sense in which I would agree with you, but that doesn't falsify, because it seemed like you were presenting the proposition principles are a lot broader as a false or something that negates something that I said or something that falsifies what I said, when that's not the case, because that's just completely compatible with everything that I said. All that I've said is that principles are in the set of all propositions, meaning that it meets the sufficient criterion. It might have other properties true about them, but it's still a proposition, at least under the most common definition of principles. All the other definitions of principles that I'm finding conform to my sufficient criteria for a proposition. Now, something that might not fall under my criteria for the definition of a proposition would be your semantics for principles. I have asked you 2 times now for your definition of principles, and which you have not given. I'm really curious, what do you mean by principles when you say that the laws of logic are principles and not propositions? I want something that excludes your semantics of principles in the way that you applied it here, that is exclusive with propositions and not inclusive of it. Also, I have an argument for why the laws of logic, and so you can take I can type this out if you want. I'll probably send it while you're talking. So if X can be represented in WFF form, then it's a proposition. The law of non-contradiction can be represented in WFF form. Therefore, the law of non-contradiction is a proposition. Now, I can clarify semantics on any term that I've used. I can clarify the inference rule that I've used for the argument, but I'm really curious, is it the case that you disagree with one of the premises or the inference, or its validity in its inference structure? So if that's the case, just let me know which premise you disagree with, and if you're curious on a term that I use, just let me know.
Wow. Yeah, that was terrible. We really have to get this guy back onto TikTok. Okay. I'm just gonna try to unpack at least a few retarded things you've said. But first, I want to clarify for the recording. I'm not arguing against the laws of logic. This guy's like terribly confused. In fact, I told him I was willing to sign off on the laws of logic because all his initial question was, do I accept the laws of logic? He's still like caught up on this like propositional nonsense. So listen. When we talk about propositions, we're just talking about statements that could be true or false, right? Now, if you're just talking about the laws of logic, like if you're saying if it could be represented in such a form, then it is. Well, I mean, not necessarily. This is like a very, very silly statement. I already agreed that they can be expressed as propositions. That's completely fine. In fact, propositions can be representations within a system. Like if you say something can be represented in propositional form and thus it's a prop, I think you're talking about the functional role in that proposition. Like sure, if you word something such as, X is true, yeah, that's a functional use, right? But in logic, right, some presuppositional system, which I'm assuming you would know, but guaranteed that the fact that you don't know, I'm not even sure how you're licensed and even talking about the laws of logic, right? But you're just drawing attention to the functional form again. Like again, presuppositional systems and logic are just frameworks or stages that we use to where we can manipulate these propositions according to the rules, obviously, that we derive, or according to these rules in order for us to derive these conclusions. So like, for example, like in a formal system of logic, like the laws of logic themselves, they can be expressed in propositional terms. So they do indeed function as props that guide, right, the manipulation and evaluation of other propositions within our systems. But if you're just asking about the distinction between principles of logic and propositions, well, yeah, I mean, there's still a very, very meaningful distinction when it comes to like our reasoning systems. I mean, like, yeah, the laws of logic may underpin the reasoning process, but they are not the content of reasoning, right? They don't serve as any content. I mean, this is also very rudimentary stuff, right? Like we don't use the laws of logic in the same sense to where we express like a proposition like the sky is blue. Like Like while the laws of logic can be represented as propositions and function as propositions in like within a logical system, they still generally are more foundational to even govern the system of how we use propositions and even understand propositions. Like propositions in like a conventional sense are just things that can be changed, arranged, discarded. We don't really need to break like a system in order to do that. The laws of logic are structural bedrocks for these systems. So yeah, you might run into some issues if you do that, right? These things are axioms, which I'm not even sure if you know what an axiom is either. But yeah, but I just want to be clear. Like I'm not disagreeing with the laws of logic. You can quit like the gibberish, like the mouth drooling nonsense. I don't really care to hear more of your gibberations. I just want to hear an argument for why God exists. And if you need me to sign off on the law of logic being integrated into my background assumptions for whatever reason, even though that's expected on both sides, to form an argument for God's existence, sure, you have my sign off. Right? But you don't have to like yap any further about this nonsense though.
Okay, beautiful. Well, I asked you, what do you mean by principles? And I wanted a definition of principles that is not necessarily inclusive of propositions. You haven't done that. The reason I asked that is because you chastised me for labeling the laws of logic as propositions. When I said, okay, do you accept classical logic? And you said, huh, do I accept it? It's not a proposition. You monkey, you tard baby, or something like that. And I was like, well, it is.
Now you tough, Lucario. Lucario, you're so tough.
Yeah, who's that anyway? That was actually kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Lucario, give me autograph later,
But-
man. Holy shit, that rhetoric is so good, man.
Yeah. Anyways, but
Nah, Lucario, you're him.
oh my god, I'm like just. This is why I'm like the Justin Bieber debates.
My
Y'all
shit
are all
is so
here for me.
laggy. But go ahead.
Anyways, but yeah, so then I said that, okay, well, the laws of logic are propositions. That's what I mean by classical logic is a conjunction of the three propositions that are the laws of logic. And then you said they're not the laws of logic. Or sorry, you said that the laws of logic are not propositions, they're principles. And I really just want your definition of principles. I don't want you to weasel away from this point. You can like tell me that you concede and say that, okay, well, when I say principles, I actually concede that they are propositions. The best that you can do is actually concede that. I will not concede because you never technically contended it, but you can grant that. Well, the principles can be represented as propositions. When I take it that if it's the case that my argument goes through, then they are propositions. And then another blunder is that you keep on saying that you already grant the laws of logic are true, when that's not the thing that I was asking, and that's not the thing that I offered an argument for. I already took for granted. That's what. Well, I mean, that's kind of why I asked you. Well, just to be clear, you accept the laws of logic, right? So I never accused you of contending the laws of logic. I never gave motivation for why the laws of logic are true. I don't think you remember the argument that I was giving earlier. Is it possible for you to repeat it just so that I know you were tracking? And it's axiom, by the way, not axiom.
I'm gonna like warn you now. If Archie starts to speak, he's most likely gonna like want to give all of his points. So
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I'm trying to be charitable to his position because he's not really doing the best job at the moment. Lucario, I don't know what you're confused about. Like, I'm not even metabating or doing any rhetoric nonsense. Like, I'm genuinely telling you, this doesn't matter. If I sign off on the idea in your initial question was, do I accept the laws of logic, which was a terrible, confused question, I mean, if that's the case, you already understand my answer. So seemingly this would give you a good warrant to move on. I'm not sure why you're so fixated on this principle nonsense. I spelled out the difference between a principle and a proposition, even told you they could function as propositions, but I explained to you why it doesn't mean that. What I told you initially is not that principle doesn't mean proposition in such a sense, because though they are extremely related, what I told you is that typically a principle is just a fundamental rule for a reasoning or an action, and a proposition is just a specific statement that is judged to be true or false. The laws of logic are not judged to be true or false in the same sense that contents of sentences are, right? Because they are itself principles that govern the rules of these sentences, right? These propositions are not themselves rules that govern themselves. This is also like very, very obvious rudimentary stuff. So I'm telling you, you can move on from this. This doesn't really matter, right? I answered your question. I spelled out the difference. So you can't really say that I'm running or weaseling, right? I'm not sure why you're using like this weird language, like such as like weaseling or whatever, as if I'm getting away from it. If anything, I just directly addressed you, and I want you to just get to your argument. Because right now, if anything, it just seems like you're swaying away from that. Nothing we've concurred so far has given me any reason to believe in God, any of the audience reason to believe in God. In fact, we don't even know what you're trying to argue at the moment in favor of God's existence. For all we know, you're trying to argue what logic is. But this doesn't really matter. Okay, so listen. Just give your argument for God's existence. You already have my sign off. You have the distinction between a principle and proposition. You have the definition of a principle now. Like, there's nothing you can really cry about. Just give your argument. What we're interested in.
Okay, beautiful. The reason why I asked you those things and why I was so pertinent on getting clarification on this was because you said that they're not propositions. It seems like you're conceding on that. Am I correct on saying that you concede on that proposition?
You're not correct, but I'm willing to be charitable and grant you that.
Do you actually believe that they're not propositions?
I just answered that. Are you autistic?
Okay, sorry, my autism cut over, and I felt the need to ask a redundant question. I apologize. So if it's the case that they're not propositions, I have an argument with a set of premises that gets to the conclusion that necessarily they are propositions.
So I'm willing to grant you this.
Do you want to contend it?
I have to
Like,
go
you
to
have the
dinner, by the
confidence?
way, so you're gonna have to get a different mod.
All right, peace out, man.
Peace.
But
So again,
yeah,
I'm willing
so,
to grant you this.
do you want to concede it?
I don't know even what to do with this guy at this point. Do you know what like grant means? Like, are you are you aware of what being charitable means?
Accept it as true. Well, but I'm actually curious. Like, if it's a case that you don't actually grant it, you're only granting it for the sake of conversation, which one of the premises do you disagree with?
This doesn't matter. I already told you that I'm willing to be charitable to you and I'm willing to grant you this.
So you're gonna.
No, I gave you the distinction already, but if you don't really care for the distinction, if you're not really like educated on logic, I don't really care to have a logic debate with you. I'm willing to grant you these things are true, because I think even if I grant you this, it wouldn't really matter, because it doesn't really support your evidence for God either way. At least not in any way that you've connected or landed. I'm not sure where the punchline is. All we know is that, like, obviously that in some sense that you need the laws of logic to formulate the rest of your argument. Like, it just seems like that's some preliminary condition. So if I'm granting you this, you can just move on to your argument. But it's just gonna make you look so much worse, and it's just gonna make you look like you're like a logically impoverished retard. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to make you look like that. So we could just move on. This stuff doesn't matter. You understand my beliefs. You understand the distinction now, hopefully. And even if you don't, you understand that I'm granting you this. So the meta debate, it doesn't really matter. No one's interested in this.
Okay, yeah, beautiful. So first you said that, they're not propositions, they're principles. You can't give a definition of principles. You bitched out on that point. You also bitched out on the proposition and the argument that I gave for the fact that they are propositions when you seemed to be contending it earlier. You attempted to give motivating reasons by going into definitions for why my accusations are false. And then once I gave a formal argument, you bitched it down on it. So now that you've lost all your confidence to contend the proposition, to contend the premise, the premises that I gave for that argument. The other nigga had soul. Who said that? But yeah, here's just like you bitched down on the other argument. I'm gonna give another argument, and this one is okay. Okay, well, if the laws of logic are true, then presumably when I give a set of premises that lead to a conclusion if you accept classical logic, where God necessarily exists, then it would be the case that presumably you're gonna affirm it.
Wait, I'm not even understanding what you're saying. What?
Okay, well, since you accept classical logic, I'm going to give you a set of premises that utilize the laws in classical logic to get to the conclusion that God exists.
So you're going to give an argument that relies on the laws of logic. That's very informative, man. Continue. It's phenomenal stuff.
It's actually more nuanced once you get into it, and we'll talk about that why, or we'll talk about why later. So I guess premise one, if there's no logical contradiction in God existing, then God exists in some existential logically possible world. There is no logical contradiction in God existing, therefore God exists in some existential logically possible world. If God exists in world X, then God's epistemological attitudes towards a proposition being true in world X are biconditional with that proposition actually being true in world X. The proposition
you can just write it out. I'm not tracking any of this.
You want me to? Okay.
It just sounds like gibberish to me.
Can you read like modus ponens, like E equals Q? Or here, I'll
Can
just like
I read modus ponens? What does that even mean?
Can you, like, if it was written in propositional calculus, would you be
just
able
stop
to
the gibberish and type it out,
natural language? Okay. Well, I have it typed out. I'm reading it from in
So
like
you can send it,
propositional
man.
form.
If P then
Okay.
Q, P therefore Q.
Yeah, you could wait. Basically,
Like,
you can read
what?
if P then Q. You can do that, right?
What was that?
Okay. Like you can read out if P then Q, P therefore Q. Like you can do basic.
I don't know
stuff
why
like
you're
that.
doing the meta nonsense. Just send the argument.
Well, I want to know if you can understand the argument.
You don't have to
in the
know
first
that.
place.
You don't need to know that. Just send the argument.
Okay. Well, I do need to know
It's
it.
just quite
if it's going to be a
useless.
waste of time. Here, I'll separate the premises.
The only
we'll try
time
one more
waster
time.
here is you're
Yeah,
not
we'll
getting the
try. We'll
argument.
try. Well, I want it on the recording. So,
I don't care what you want to do.
Premise one: there is, if there is no logical contradiction in God existing, then God exists in some existential logically possible world. That's premise one. Premise two, really basic: there is no logical contradiction in God existing. Conclusion one: God exists in some existential logically possible world. Premise three: if God exists in world X, then God's epistemological attitudes towards the proposition being true X are biconditional with that proposition actually being true in world X. Premise four: the proposition either the sentence is false or contains the syntax error T and F, truthness and falseness would entail the
I'm
proposition
not
in
understanding
conjunction
what
with
you're
an
saying. Like,
Okay,
again,
I'll
we're
just-
just running into the same issue. Just send it.
Okay, I'll just send it.
Like, that way you just had to do the same thing. You just wasted our time.
Oh
That's gonna be a
man,
bit of a
Lucario
tracking
wasted
issue
the time.
on
Are you
Sorry.
are you sending it in side chat or main chat?
Let's go side chat. I won't get lost in side chat. Oh shit, I don't even have fucking permissions to type in side chat. That's insane.
Neither
yeah.
do I, man. This is robbery, man.
Here's the argument.
Yo, is this like a wife fun argument? What is this, bro? Nah, you tough, bro.
But yeah, you could wait. You said you could read about his photos,
Nigga
right?
speaking Chinese. What the fuck is this shit, bro?
No, it's okay. So let's just
there's
so let's
symbols there.
use ChatGPT to translate all of this nonsense where he copped out of debating. Let's see.
That's some high
Explain all of this in natural language.
Okay, so Poda had to use ChatGPT. Okay,
I did. I can't read.
that's a knowledge.
I can't read
That's a
foreign
knowledge
language. I'm sorry.
Knowledge.
You're
Yeah, it's
right.
not a foreign language.
It's not.
Nope.
So this is natural language.
It's not. I never said it's natural language. It's not a
Okay,
distinction.
okay.
It's
So it
not
is
a,
foreign
it's not a
to me.
dichotomy.
Got you.
Oh, it's. Oh wait, it's foreign to you. Oh, in the sense that you can't read propositional calculus, basic shit. Yeah.
No, it's foreign to me in the sense to where you typed out random kanji. That actually doesn't have any sentential logic notation to it. And unless you want to
That's not
cite some
kanji.
literature to where it
That's
does.
not kanji, idiot. That's hiragana, dumbass.
That's wonderful. So right
Yeah,
here in
and
chat, what do you think
Yeah,
this
it literally
is?
has the translation. It literally has the translations.
That's okay. Yeah, it is still a foreign language to me, Kezi. You can ignore his blunder. But let's see. So if it's not logically contradictory for that God exists, then God exists.
Logically possible
What?
world.
Wait, hold on. Wait, did ChatGPT just blunder you, or did it just catch the presuppositionalist in your argument? What is
That's
this?
not a presupposition.
Wait, what? Yeah, did it just catch you? Is it wrong? What are you trying to say? What is this? That was your cue to like elaborate and clarify, by the way.
I can read out the premises slowly for you if you want.
No, you don't have to do that. I'm just asking, like, is it wrong in its assumption that you're just saying if
yeah.
it exists, that exists?
Yo,
Okay,
Lucario,
so
what up?
clarify
What's
that.
your tried your argument
Which
in natural
ChatGPT are
language?
you using?
I'm using.
Yeah, I'll
it's
post
called. It's called Yanni PT. I don't know. I got it from some guy off the black market.
Okay, that explains why it's got wrong.
Yeah, 100%. So do you want to explain the inconsistency now?
Yeah, the first premise you can see it doesn't follow that, and ChatGPT doesn't even like know actual meta logic, by the way.
Yes, it
it's
does
genuinely
actually. Do you want me to send you a statistic? Actually, it understands
Statistic.
logic and coding very, very well. More than it does natural language sometimes.
Nope, the LLM isn't equipped because its resources that it gets
It's okay.
to,
Let
a
me
lot
just
of them are
prove you
gatekept.
wrong.
Gatekept.
Model statistics. Okay. Oh, actually, I'll specify. I am using ChatGPT, by the way, just for
Yeah,
clarification.
you're using. Wait, I put it in. I put it in Copilot. Like not even an expensive one. Like fucking Copilot reads it accurately.
But you
It
put
doesn't
what
say
in
that-
Copilot?
I put the argument in Copilot.
And what did it say?
If it's not logically contradictory that God exists, then God exists in some possible world. Not that he exists.
Well, that's just what
Bro,
you're
you need
saying
to-
by he exists in some
Dog, you need to
possible.
update your ChatGPT, man. You need to, bro. Copilot.
No,
is
I'm trying to
free,
explain
by
to you
the
that
way.
that's
It's free,
the
by
same
way.
thing.
It's free, by the way. It's free, by the way.
I'm trying to explain to you that that's the same thing.
The same thing? You think God existing in some existential, logically possible world is the same thing? You think they're identical?
I mean, practically to your argument, it just seems that you're using some weird, like, modal ontological argument or some shitty formulation of it.
You might not be a modal realist. That's not gonna. If you're
Well,
not a
my
modal realist,
fictionalism or
that
realism
convince
doesn't
you.
matter to this argument. Because even if
Actually,
I
it
were
does.
to suppose that I was some, like, realist, this still would be an issue.
Wait, that's on recording, right? Like you read out. Wait, go back to your ChatGPT. Does it unironically say that? Then the conclusion is.
Why are you
the
asking a
consequence is
question that you can
aesthetic?
just look in chat for?
Wait,
It's
let me
right
see
there.
it. Hold on. Let me find it. That's funny as hell.
It's okay. I'll, like, send it to you to remind you
There's no
of it.
logic concept
This is actually a
that
very
exists.
common critique noted by Gramapi as well. In fact, it just seems to be saying the same thing. I could elaborate as to why, though.
Existence is possible. God exists. Oh my god. And bro, you need to update that shit. Holy shit.
You're like the only one laughing at the moment, which is very, very weird to me.
Because it's
But I told you I can
hilarious.
explain why it's the same thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so obviously, if he exists in some possible world, you take God's attributes to just be perfect in some sense, to where he'd be like perfectly, exercising his property of existence or whatever, assuming that you don't take it
Wow.
to be some weird primitive notion. No,
No, I
that's
don't
going to
think
be
it
a
has to be
blunder
like.
to your argument.
I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to be perfect.
Okay,
I don't
okay. Well,
define
under
God as
the
perfect.
okay, so he doesn't have to be perfect.
How was that a
Wonderful,
blunder?
wonderful. No, it's okay. I'll let you walk into it. So he doesn't have to be perfect. So let's follow through your argument. I don't agree to premise one. What's the argument for premise one?
The argument that for the conditional,
What?
well, I think you're going to want to contend proposition number 2, not proposition.
Well, no,
number
I want to
one.
contend one.
You want to contend premise 1, not just to be clear. You're not
Yes.
contending premise 2. You're contending premise 1, right?
Well, to be clear, I could contend them after. I'm just not sure why I'd even agree to one.
Okay. So, the argument for why, I'll type it out. The person
Okay.
I'm talking to rejects that if there's no logical contradiction in X, then X.
I don't
exists in
reject this.
some-
I'm just saying I don't have a reason for it. I'm not
You
sure
do
why I should be
reject it.
compelled to believe it.
That's what contending. You're
That's
contending
not what
it.
rejecting is. You told me I was rejecting it. I never
Yeah,
said I
you're
rejected
rejecting
it.
You're resisting.
Maybe.
it.
Well, I don't
Or
want to
do you feel
equivocate on
allergic to
you.
it?
So maybe you're just using rejecting in some sense to where you're just saying that I'm suspending belief on it. But I take it
Yeah.
that you're saying that I'm actually
That's what I mean.
holding a belief that's opposing to it.
Oh, really,
Which is
really
not
good
the case.
clarification there. Good job. You're doing so well. Anyways,
I'm not
the
sure again
point
what the
of-
meta nonsense is. Do you have an
Wait,
argument
stop.
though?
Just stop interjecting.
No, you can stop. Do you have an
Stop
argument?
interjecting.
Do
No,
you have an
can
argument?
Stop. Wow, you know.
So
now
do
that
you
told
have
me
an
I can
argument
stop-
or?
Yeah, I do have an argument.
So where's it?
Okay, the argument. Here, I'll type it out.
Go for it. You said that 5 minutes ago.
I didn't say that.
Well, that's gonna be interesting on the record.
Premise 1. Let's see. And just to be clear, you can read propositional calculus, right?
I mean, to be clear, sure. This doesn't really matter though.
Oh, why couldn't you read the argument?
It's because you typed it out in very, very nonsensical language.
Nonsensical language. Those symbols didn't
Yes.
have anything to do with the meaning of the term.
I'm not saying that they had to do with the meaning or the content, but you were using them to represent the context, correct? So obviously the representation is going to interpret how I read it. This is also very trivial propositional logic.
You
Anyways,
imported
though.
you imported your own meaning of hiragana.
Where did
into
I
the
say I
meaning, even
imported
though-
my own meaning on it? I said that the
I'm
way I'm going to
asking
read
you.
it and interpret it is going to be reliant on the way it's being represented, regardless of whether the content remains the same. So for example,
Oh,
right?
interchange.
Actually, this is
The
very, very
symbols.
simple. So
It
if
just
I
takes
say
pattern
that...
recognition.
Excuse
I
me
gave you
for a
the
second.
translation.
Excuse
You
me
can
for a
just do it by
second.
yourself.
Do I have to
Easy,
like
I don't-
overtalk
I don't
you?
expect you. You are over talking.
Yeah. Do I have to overtalk you more louder? I should specify.
More louder.
Yes, more louder.
Well, to be clear,
So back to what I was saying, though.
you're over
No, it's okay, it's
talking
okay.
that.
You clarified. I did have to do this. So if I say that, let's say A, okay, or actually, no. If I just say that a prop, okay, just equals a statement that can be true or false, okay? This is pretty understandable. So the minute I say prop, you'll get it. Usually, right? And usually I won't even have to specify that because it's already intuitive to a lot of people that that is what proposition means. But if I say that giggle jargon bithole equals a statement that can be true or false. This right here, surely not a lot of people are gonna understand this off of me just saying jiggle, jargon, bittle. Now surely this doesn't mean that they won't understand in the sense to where they can't possibly fathom a statement that can be true or false. That just means that I'm representing such a statement in a way that's unfamiliar to the person reading it. So the representation isn't to speak necessarily of the content, because even though I'm not understanding it, the content of jiggle, jargon, bittle, it's very coherent. But the way it's being represented isn't very coherent to a lot of people. So now that you understand the meaningful distinction, what's the argument for premise one?
Okay, so wait, just to be clear, you were just lazy, and I gave you.
Well, just to be clear, you aren't giving an argument.
I'm typing it out. Just calm down.
You've been saying that for so long now.
I'm typing slow.
Are you typing out like a full syllogism contained with lemmas for premise one?
It's almost done for you. It's really basic.
Gotcha,
Well,
gotcha,
now I have to
gotcha.
think about how to explain like really basic shit. Like how would I explain 1 + 1 = 2 to like an autist?
Let's see. Okay.
We were typing out an essay in the One Piece anime. That shit is crazy, dog.
Like, bro.
Totally crazy.
Also interesting. So Isaac, I just want to let me. Do you think a human could understand this? You don't think an ape would be closer to understanding this than a human? I just want to get your sign off on that, Isaac. I just want to be clear.
Yo,
Who's
making
doing
those
that
weird
shit?
noises, bro?
I don't know. It's probably Lucario's boyfriend.
Not sure.
Guys, I'm not homophobic, bro. I promise.
That was kind of
Sorry.
rhetorical. I'm not gonna. It's not my boyfriend, but that was kind of.
Yes, it is Lucario's argument. Bro, I'm gay too, bro. It's okay, bro. We can make it after. But listen, just give your argument. It's probably just Lucario. Oh, I definitely did say that to get it more subs. Oh man. Oh, that was hilarious, Shikyo. Holy shit. Oh man. Did you have an argument?
Yeah, it's
He's either a retard or a troll. To him, apparently, I'm autistic for not understanding this.
I didn't call you autistic.
I didn't say that out loud to get more subs, by the way. I just want to also let you know that. Just so we can be clear.
Okay, I forgot I don't have like perms in the side chat.
You forgot you didn't have
Sure.
perms to mute me? Is that what you said? That's a joke before
Yeah.
you autistically interpret different. So let's see. This is what it took you 5 minutes to write out? Okay.
No,
Let's unpack this.
I was laughing at you, Redder.
Okay, so let's see.
I'm responding to text.
If X does not contain interesting. Okay. Interesting. And you think this is like a good argument for premise one?
It follows.
Okay. Well, first off, this isn't like sufficient for logical possibility anyway. I mean, lack of contradiction doesn't mean that it's a logical possibility. There's many concepts that can be coherent at face value, but still not be logically possible because it either has a category error, either it's dependent on some retarded, unfounded like assumption, either the coherence is only apparent. There's many different issues with this, right? So I don't really know what you mean by that.
Sorry about what you said to make sure that we agree. You said lack of contradiction does not mean it's logically possible, right?
Yeah, not necessarily.
Okay.
Because obviously, things that, seem to be not logically possible can just seemingly like involve category errors. Maybe it's like dependent on some like unfounded assumption about the modal like exhaustion space. There's many different issues with that, right? Like there seem to be like a lot of concepts that we can. I wasn't done. There seems to be many concepts that we can actually find that are coherent at face value, actually, not obviously like contradictory, right? So for example, right, like a married bachelor, we'd say this is contradictory, sure, right? But consider actually Chomsky's example. If you've read Eddie Chomsky, it says that a colorless green idea is sleeping furiously, right? This is obviously grammatically fine. It's not contradictory on the surface, but it's also meaningless, right? So arguably, it's actually not logically possible for any of these things to be possible, at least in some weird, like, robust sense. So there's definitely some weird distinguishment or some like distinction between like conceivability and a lack of contradiction, right? From logical and metaphysical possibility, right? So there is something. But that's just your issue with premise 1. Premise 2 is also very, very retarded. But do you have an actual response to the critique of premise 1?
Yeah, I just want to sign off that I concur that if a laptop didn't have a contradiction, that doesn't mean the laptop is logically possible. Something that's necessary for logical possibility, I'd say, is being
Wait, but
truth
your
apt.
premise says if
So
X doesn't
stop.
have
You
a
interjected.
contradiction, then it's
Stop.
logically
Stop.
possible.
Stop. Stop. Stop.
Well, I
where
just want to
X
be
is-
clear
where-
because
where
it
X is
seems right
effective.
here. What it says is that this right here.
You
But
interrupted,
Emir
you
Bachelor
interrupted,
is a
you
contradiction.
interrupted,
I want to
you
specify for Rec.
interrupted, you
But yeah, right
interrupted.
here. Thank you for. But yeah, right here. Obviously, what you said right here, right in the argumentative recap, it actually says that P1 is if X does not have a contradiction, then it is logically possible. And you just told me that you agree and you sign off on the fact that if your computer doesn't have a logical contradiction, that doesn't make it logically possible. So immediately, this conditional is false, or there has to be some further elaboration or reasoning in order to make it true. So what would that further additional reasoning be?
Oh, I thought you were familiar with propositional calculus, where they have P and Q
My
represented as
familiarity on
propositions.
propositional
Stop
calculus doesn't matter.
interjecting. No, I thought. Wait, who's the moderator? Because if not,
Infinity
I'm just
said
gonna,
that he
wait
was
until
running
this-
like so long ago, or not running,
I
but that he
know.
had to
I'm
dip.
asking. Yeah, he had to dip. So who's the new moderator?
We can talk about that. Who do you want to be?
Let's go free.
Good night. Go. I love Free, but that didn't go so well so much last time. He's the
I
goat
mean,
though,
that's fair. That's
but
fair.
that didn't go well. So who else would you like?
I don't know anyone else.
And for the
Interesting.
clarity, because
Hey, I think-
I don't think people heard Archie. Archie did say that Mary Bachelor is a logical contradiction.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I did say this. Okay. So
Yeah.
we could have like Garo like spitty balls if you want.
Wait, Free, you don't think married bachelor is contradictory?
No, I think you said
No,
the
I think-
opposite.
I'm saying the opposite, but people didn't hear Archie. But
Yeah, I accidentally said the opposite.
Oh.
It was just a blunder for me. It's whatever. But yeah, Gyro like spitty balls. We could have him.
I don't know him. I think for irony, would you accept? Bruce?
But hold on, he's the best debater.
I kind of want to accept. I kind of want to evaluate. Bruce.
No, I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
Gyro's the
moderate.
best debater, so we should have him.
I
Do you
don't-
disagree
I
with
don't
that?
know that guy. I don't. Yeah. I
You
mean, I
disagree
don't
with
accept that.
Gyro being the best? What?
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird. That's a very, very hot take. Who else?
Wait, is it gyro like spinny balls?
Yeah,
Oh no, he's the best. Sorry.
that's what
Oh,
I'm
you're talking
saying,
about-
bro.
I thought you were talking about some
Like he's
other
literally a
gyro.
goat. No. But yeah, it's fine, I guess. Who else would you like to have?
How about Lucaria?
I mean, I don't know why you're doing like this weird troll shit. So who would you like to have?
Bruce.
Bruce. We can have Bruce.
Yeah.
And
the person
ironically,
you
I
were
don't
dick-
think he's gonna be biased. But
Yeah, the
it's
person
fine.
you were dick sucking the other. Yeah.
I'm dick sucking him because I have a friendship. Yo, bro, you just keep showing your pronounced social cues, bro. Like I'm just stuck on this, bro. You literally have the best social cues.
Anyway,
like you remind me every day.
someone get Bruce perm.
Yeah, move past that blunder. So who wants to be the moderator if he doesn't agree to Bruce and he was being sarcastic?
No, I
And
wasn't
tells a
being
strong epistemic
I
domain, not a
will.
necessary one.
No,
That's actually what I was trying to
unironically,
get to.
unironically,
But that gets to his
I
premise too, though, Free. And what?
No, unironically, I want him
I
to be
will.
moderator. He's the only person I know.
Who?
Bruce, he's the only person I know.
Yeah, I already signed off on that. Okay, cool. So what's your response?
Okay. The response was, I find it interesting that you say that you're familiar with propositional calculus, where they use variables, where they could say like if P, then Q, and stuff like that. But notice what's specified is that there's a scope of the variability, so it's not just like an object. There's variable categories, and so you could take variability as a cardinality as sufficient substitutes for a particular, and if that substitute is a proposition, or that particular is a proposition, then the variable scope has been defined. So you could have like a closed variable in that sense. So there's no issue with that if you just like didn't understand that X was indexed to a particular variable category. So I can clarify that for you, but typically when we write arguments, we kind of suppose this because when we write arguments with like if P then Q and stuff like that, like no one autistically just like looks at that and says, "Oh, what if P is a laptop?" Well, no, we understand the variability scopes, in which I'm sorry you just didn't pick up on it. So now that I've clarified the variability scope for you, is there an issue with premise one? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm not sure what any of that nonsense was, but propositional calculus doesn't change or validate your argument. Yeah, you need modal logic to even begin to adjust claims of a possible world's necessity and like existence. Okay? The type of argument is modal in nature because it involves a reasoning about the possibility and the existence in other possible worlds. Those are modal concepts. They're not expressible in basic propositional logic. Now, propositional calculus, okay, is just logic that concerns truth functional operators, such as and or not, right? It just treats obviously, propositions has like atomic props, right? It just doesn't look inside the content about props. Basic sentential logic is not going to help you here, you fucking peon. This doesn't matter, right? You need modal logic to kind of justify and evaluate this argument properly, okay? The operators, such as possibility and necessarily, these are modal operators, you peon, okay? I don't want you to act like a nugget here, okay? Let's try not to be a melon. Listen, modal logic can represent claims such as X is possibly true. It represents claims such as X is necessarily true, okay? So if you wanted to make an argument more accurately, okay, you could maybe describe some kind of, I don't know, I'll even write it out for you, right? And this is not copy and pasted, I promise. You could describe something like this, right? Yeah, I wrote that out very quick. And in this instance, you describing it like this, maybe this would fit the kind of argument you're attempting to say, right? But this in itself isn't going to change anything. So that was a non-argument, right? You doged, you're a doger. Actually, you're a throger because you throged twice, right? That means you throged equally 2 times. Okay, that means you dodged 6 times. Okay, because you doged 3 times, both times. That means that's 6 doges. So that means that's 2 throges. So listen. If this is the case, I just want you to no longer doge anymore, okay? I just want you to focus on the words coming out of my mouth, okay? Your critique for premise 1 that doesn't bear on the existence or the application of propositional calculus here, okay, is that a lack of contradiction, which you signed off of, is not mean that it's logically possible, okay? Your P1 is that if X does not have a contradiction, then it is logically possible, okay? I'm saying that if X does not have have a contradiction, that it doesn't immediately have to be that it's logically possible. This consequent is not immediately predicted or expected of something not having a contradiction. That means you can't place this conditional. It's not very conditional then, right? You can form it in the sentence and in the structure of a conditional, but I'm not even sure why I should sign off on this being the case. I'm not sure why this consequent is even implied from the antecedent. In fact, I've given multiple instances of instances to where it can't. Like, for example, the Chomsky example, right? If you say there's a colorless green idea sleeping angrily, right? Typically, you probably wouldn't find any grammatical contradiction here. You probably wouldn't find any kind of contradiction here in some sense, but that doesn't really mean it's logically possible in any robust sense, right? Again, I don't know how I have to repeat this for you, but this is also a very, very common contention to the shitty form of the modal ontological argument that you're trying to postulate, or the defense in this instance. So do you actually have a response to this that doesn't involve you like yapping about propositional calculus that you actually probably don't know? Also, I'm confused on why you mentioned propositional calculus, by the way. It'd be much more simpler to just say that you're actually using some kind of reference within sentential logic or prop logic. It just seemed as if you were only mentioning the truth functional operators of propositional logic, and you wanted to make it seem as if you're mentioning something more with propositional logic or propositional calculus. That's quite useless, right? Because clearly here, the truth functional operators are what you're using. It doesn't really matter about the content of your argument, right? This is also very basic stuff. I'm not complaining about the structure of your argument. I'm just complaining about why I should have good reason to believe in it. So now that we're all clear on that, do you have an argument?
Yeah, initially you said that you needed clarification, like with modal logic, and the difference between modal logic and just propositional logic would be that you could use them as a non-propositions. You can attribute the necessity and possibility for the non-propositions. But if you, Google it, not Google, I use ChatGPT, but if you even ChatGPT it, this is something that I already understood very basically, but I'll just get ChatGPT if you take it as reliable. If not, I'll just go find another valid source. If you ask it, are modal operators applicable to non-propositions? The response to that is, modal operators like box, necessity, and diamond, possibility, are typically assigned to propositions. This is typically, not always, statements that can be evaluated as true or false. It goes into other examples. And then it's going to ask the question itself, can modal operators apply to non-propositions? And then it specifies under classical value, no, it can't. And if you affirm classical logic and classical values, and you also consider modal logic, well, the answer is straightforward, no. In classical modal logic, which is what we already signed off on earlier, Modal operators are truth functional. They
Classical
operate to
modal
indicate
logic?
Stop. Yeah, classical modal logic.
What
a term.
is that?
You don't know that? Do you not know what classical modal logic is?
That's what I signed off to earlier? That's the laws of logic, classical modal logic?
You signed to classical logic, yeah.
You just told me I signed off on classical modal logic. What is that?
Okay, so you signed
I'm
off
not
on
familiar with
classical
that
logic.
term.
I just want to be clear. You sign off on classical logic, but you don't know what classical modal logic is? But you know
That's
what
not
modal
what I
logic
asked
is?
you. That's a wonderful pivot.
No, that's a question.
No, that's, again, your question was a pivot. Because I asked the question.
Okay, wait, just to be clear, you don't know. Oh,
Just to be
and
clear,
this is-
you
this is
asked,
just a
you
question.
answered my
Yeah,
question
this is another
by
question.
asking
No,
another
this-
question. Just to
This
be
is
clear.
pointing to the this is pointing to the irony. Like, you sign off on classical logic.
What are you
know what
saying?
modal logic is, but you don't know classical modal logic?
Wait, hang on a second. You inferred that I don't know classical modal logic, which in some weird sense I actually don't even know what you mean by that. I'm aware of like formulations of it, but typically they would just be referring
No,
to
you
some
know what
traditional or
classical
conventional
modal
standard of
logic
modal
is?
logic.
He's just basically trying to use unfamiliar terminologies with most people's knowledge to make it seem as if he's smart. Smarter than he actually is. But yeah, you do in fact know what classical modal logic is. It's like literally some obvious shit.
Like, and by the way, Apollo, just to clarify, from what I'm thinking, classical modal logic is he just talking about some conventional and traditional usage of modal logic, or?
Yeah, it's just talking about, it's just the foundational system of modal logic. Like
Yeah.
one deals with like, yeah, so modal logic just deals with like all the axioms and so forth. Classical modal logic just deals with like what, like what specifically represents necessity, possibility, impossibility, how you basically show that in like a modal logic formal system. That's basically it. It's nothing that deep. Like I'm pretty sure you know that like a box in modal logic represents necessity, right?
Yeah, same with like the little
And a
diamond
diamond
representing.
represents possibility. Yeah, so you know classical. Just,
Actually,
don't
I
know
even
why
formulated
he
in
looked at
chat.
the use.
Why is he asking me that?
Yeah, he's like using terminologies that he knows that he won't be familiar with to make it seem as if you're ignorant, when the thing that the terminology is representative of is something that everyone fucking knows. Like, please stop.
But isn't that just gonna make him look worse? Because I'm sure no common person is gonna understand what the fuck he means by classical modal
Yeah,
logic.
majority of full debaters don't even use that term.
Yeah, it's cool, whatever. Sure. Yeah, I didn't sign off on that either way, but if you're just asking, like, if that's also maybe granted in some weird sense of my background assumption, maybe? I'm not even understanding the relevance there. Maybe could you elucidate that?
Yeah, now that my two victims are done talking to each other, the reason why I use the term classical modal logic is because
No, I'm not asking
I
about
use-
why.
Stop,
I'm asking
stop,
to elucidate
stop,
the term
stop,
of what
stop,
the relevance is.
stop. Who's the
No,
moderator?
you can stop
Wait,
because I
who's the
didn't ask about
moderator?
that.
Wait, Bruce.
It's Bruce.
Wait, yeah, Bruce, I need you to mute him.
That's okay. You can mute me. Well, I'm unmuted. I just want to address the fact that you actually didn't answer the question. That's why I interrupted.
Yeah, put a muzzle on that dog. But yeah, now that my two victims are done talking to each other, it's not the case that I'm using the term classical modal logic to try to knowledge gap, even though if I did, I just think that would be very funny. I just think that would be very hilarious. And unironically, I might do that later. If there's a term that I know you're not familiar with. It's funny watching you pretend to know something that you don't. But also, I will say you're not as bad as Apollo, because Apollo, whenever I do that to you, like jurisprudence, you just posture around as if you understand what it means, even though you don't. And when I asked you, you get the definition wrong. This process led you ended up leading you falling. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
No,
Don't think
he's
it is the
literally
case that
baiting you,
classical
bro.
modal logic-
Yeah, you did.
Don't
Wait,
think
can you
it
just
is the
ignore
case
it for a
that
second? He's
modal
baiting you.
logic is a foundational system in modal logic.
Who's the
Wait,
mod?
I just want to
Who's
say
the
he's
mod?
baiting
Who's the
you.
mod? Who's
You
the
can just
mod?
ignore
Who's the
it.
mod? Who's the mod?
Could
Who's
you
the mod?
repeat back to me
Yeah,
my
you got baited.
definition of
Yeah, you got
classical
baited,
modal
dumb fuck.
logic?
You got baited, dumb
I'm
fuck.
stuttering,
Yeah.
dude.
Wait, who's the mod? Who's the mod? Who's the mod?
I was
Who's the
gonna
mod?
say you can
Where's
just
the mod?
Apollo. You could just
Where's the
ignore
mod?
him because it's gonna
Where's
look
the
bad
mod?
on recording either
Where's
way.
the mod?
You just
Where's
let
the
him continue.
mod? Where's the mod? Where's the mod?
Who are you
Anyways, now
talking
that
to,
I'm
bro?
gonna, I'm asking where the mod is. Holy shit!
Bro, you were literally saying where's the mod in both me and
Yo,
Archie.
guys, someone took my perms.
Oh, someone
I
took
don't know. I don't know who did that, but I'm fine with letting you continue. I actually think it's gonna make you look worse.
At
No,
that
you can
point,
continue.
unironically, I do have to get ready for work soon. But at that point, we can go to closing. Someone took the agreed upon moderators' terms, perms.
Terms and
I
perms.
started.
Yeah, I guess. So do you want to
Ableist.
like give your closing first or what?
No.
Okay, I guess I'll give mine. So I mean, first off, I'm not even sure what
You
this
wanna have the
confusion
last
of a debate
word?
was. Like, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but Lucario was very, very confused on what logic was. It seems as though he thought that like axioms are basic, very, very basic rules and these foundations that we use to actually form intelligibility. the background assumptions we take to form coherent sentences and thoughts, he took those to be reflective of content itself, saying that these are actually acting as propositions. I had to clarify that that's actually not the case, and I had to clarify to him that this doesn't matter, but even then, in his attempt, it seems as though the argument he gave was using some modal ontological argument. I mean, there's a few major issues here. Like first off, he didn't even get past premise one, in the sense to why I even have to like agree to this conditional. To which he gave an argument for premise one, which was just that if X does not have a contradiction, then it's logically possible. If something is logically possible, then it exists in some possible world. Yada yada. I tried to explain to him about why this actually wasn't the case. In fact, I gave him the very, very comic critique coined by Chomsky and Rowe, actually later in his formulation in 1979? 1970. 1980, no, 1997, 1997. Coined by Rowe, which is just a colorless green idea sleeping furiously. In this sentence alone, it seems to not contain any grammatical contradiction or any contradiction on the surface, but since it's meaningless, it's arguably not logically possible in any robust sense, right? Which would distinguish, obviously, a meaningful distinction between conceivability and a lack of contradiction, and from logical/metaphysical possibility. Now, it seems that his response to this was, sure, he can sign off on that. In fact, he even signed off on the fact that, for whatever reason, he doesn't think, in whatever example it was, that just because his laptop doesn't hold a contradiction doesn't mean it's possible. But I explained to him why this just contradicts his first initial premise, because it states that if X does not have a contradiction, then it is logically possible. And I explained to him that if you're using some other factor that it bears on, then you would have to further elaborate on that, because it can't simply be the case that it doesn't contain a contradiction. That's what makes it logically possible. But that's what's being inferred from his argument. To which he says to me that actually probability calculus is the reason why it makes it probability calculus is actually, or not probability calculus, but propositional calculus, my bad, is what makes this argument very, very strong. And what makes it stronger, and actually, it's why I'm not understanding. But I had to clarify to him that propositional calculus alone does not fundamentally change or validate this argument, right? And in fact, we're actually going to need modal logic, which happens to be an extension of this propositional logic, to even begin to address what we're talking about when we're talking about possible worlds, necessity, and existence, right? The type of argument that he's using, which I've already explained previously, was clearly modal in nature, which means that he was going to have to explain it in some modal sense, or spell it out or cash it out in some modal sense, which he attempted to, but he was very, very confused on propositional logic and modal logic. In fact, even furthermore, saying that something of classical modal logic, which actually wasn't even relevant because, I mean, seemingly I've already spelled out what modal logic is. Previously, even begged of him to recognize that this is a modal argument. At least in some sense, you're going to need to spell it out using modal terms, right? Propositional calculus, obviously just using truth functional operators, isn't going to help him with this. So he was just shadowboxing the entire time. I'm not sure what that principle proposition nonsense in the beginning was. He takes it that every principle is a proposition for whatever reason. He'll probably try to like pivot away from that, but yeah, that's my closing. Yep.
Okay, beautiful. So yeah, in the first part, before we even got to the argument of the proposition that we're talking about, he did say some like really stupid shit, or like he affirmed that the laws of logic are not propositions. This isn't just a suspension of judgment on whether they're propositions or not, but it's the negation. He says that they're not propositions, and then later clarifies that they're principles, not propositions. Then I asked him for, okay, well, what's a semantic reduction of principles such that is not necessarily inclusive of propositions, in which he got bitched out on that point and ran away from it. Now, the reason why it's funny is because the first fucking definition of a principle is literally defined as like a proposition. So after he got bitched on that point, I gave him an argument in which it was just premise one. Sorry, actually, let me get the actual argument. Oh yeah, premise one: if X can be represented in WFF form, then it's a proposition. Premise two: the laws of logic can be represented in FF form, therefore they're propositions. And I don't think you remembered that argument. Hopefully, he was typing it out. But if you were typing out, maybe you can scroll up and look at it. That's what it says. That wasn't an argument for why the laws of logic are true, in which he started saying that, well, I already grant that the laws of logic are true, so you don't need to motivate it. And you told me to stop motivating why the laws of logic are true when I never tried to motivate why they were. It's just a conditional or, okay, well, if you accept those, then here's the argument for God's existence utilizing the laws that are used in classical logic. Once I did that, I read him the argument. He didn't keep up. I read it to him slower, still couldn't keep up. Then I decided, okay, you know what? We can just type it out. I'll just send you it in its propositional calculus form, in which he unironically couldn't keep up with that either. This is just a very low tier performance. I don't even believe in the argument. There's a lot of, but the reason why I would use it to knowledge gap somebody because it's funny. You're an idiot. You don't understand how philosophy works. You don't understand how logic works, and you make stupid claims about meta logic.